Welcome everyone, today we have a new builder's guide for Last Epoch with a Void Knight. And yes, looking behind me, we have Spin to Win. Yes, in most of the action RPGs, I love to try like a Barbarian Spin to Win with Whirlwind. And in Last Epoch, the second class I tried was a Void Knight with Spin to Win. So briefly going through the Void Knight in its early stages. You can see that we're spinning without spending any of our mana. So you can pretty much sustain yourself with permanent spin at the very start of the game. Now during this replay, I deliberately provided you guys with lower level process of leveling and also transitional process. So you can see at the very start of the game, I only have 1 or 2 skills activated and also perked out. And at this stage, you might feel like, hey, you're not doing that much with spinning, right? You're still auto-attacking. Well, it's because at this moment, I'm not doing the highest damage. But as we fast forward a little bit, once I have enough leveling into my spin, I can pretty much stand the AFK in most of the content. And this is one of the modes where the monsters keep rushing at you, and all I did was pretty much stood there and AFK'd. And then the boss came. I was like, hey, let me try to stand there. And surprisingly enough, our build was almost durable to face tank the boss. And very soon I'll show you guys how we face tank, other bosses. So yeah, this was actually quite fun. One of the funny things happened over here as well. I was being quite careless with that spin to win, and here I actually died at the same time with the boss. And the good thing about Last Epoch is this actually completes the fight, so I don't have to fight the boss again. Now fast forwarding a little bit, once our Void Knight becomes somewhat activated, we will be doing void damage with a spin to win. And this will dramatically increase our movement speed, damage dealing potential, and everything that is related to the build. So you can see that now I have a purple glow with my spin ability, which I explained the transition to you guys, which is actually pretty fun. And we're incredibly splitting with charge and also spin. With high levels of spin, you actually gain a bonus movement speed with your spin. While at the start of the fight previously, I was losing a bit of movement speed as I was spinning. So the faster you move, the even faster you move in this particular build. And of course, with most of the spin to win build, our build has incredible damage potential against AoE monsters. And the next thing of course is to highlight some of the damage over time and also increasing damage against bosses. So fast forwarding a little bit to the end game of Last Epoch, on the mid game where you started to do the repeating the echo dungeons where you'll be leveling and also gaining potential. And here I was leveling during this recording. So as we go into the end game farm for the Last Epoch, as we get through the mid game into the end game, you'll find yourself incredibly speedy, and you'll find yourself dealing tons of damage without even clicking any button. I'll show you guys how to auto cast spin. And by auto casting spin, I just have to stand there. I don't even have to hold buttons, and this is incredibly good for any of the bosses as well as we deal increasing damage. Now just to show you guys one more highlight against one of the boss in the end game with the echoes. So this is one of the abomination. What I'm doing here is I'm just casting a few buffs, and if you notice closely, our damage racks up as we keep spinning into the boss. We have damage over time, we have sustained damage, and the best thing is it doesn't cost resource to be spinning. It only costs resource as an active other spells which I want to get a buff. And here what I want to show you is, yes, you can face tank the boss in the endgame as you level up your gears, as you get more items, as you get more lifesteal. This is actually not the fastest boss clear, but it's a pretty fun boss clear because I'm not dying. So this is a hands-free spin build which has incredibly life-stealing potential, lots of mobility, and also it's extremely easy to play. So for new players that want to try a spin to win build in Last Epoch, I really recommend trying this particular build and also have a tons of fun with it as you spin to win. Yes, as I was talking, the boss died. I purposely didn't cast any spells to just show you guys I can face tank the boss without pressing any buttons. Now I have currently leveled up my Void Knight to level 59. If you guys want to see some like mid to end game slightly farming in echo dungeons, I'll provide you guys with some replays. I'm not leveling the fastest as I want to try another beginner's build with a druid. I want to try lots of builds so you guys are ready for the new seasons. But yes, the replays will be available for you guys to have a look into the boss fights, into the dungeons, and also into the current gears I'm using. So coming over to my character. The first thing I want to show you guys is the ability to spin is called Warpath. Now one of the nice tricks I realized for this build, which I really want to highlight, is the ability to auto spin. Notice where my hands are? So if I press W it will spin, right? This takes one hand. But something interesting happens. If I press shift then W, And now I just stand here, hands free, no hands, and I'm spinning. I can move my mouse, that's it. All I have to do is move my mouse. I don't have to press anything, and it auto spins and duplicate more spins, and it's hands free. This is really good if you just want to park in front of bosses or monsters, and I do want to get bigger range for my spins, so I deal with range monsters. But you have tons of life steal, you just park in front of them and you just spin. Now once you cast a spell, it will take away the spin, but if you hold shift, press W, auto spins. Now W is the hotkey for Warpath, and this is one of the reasons I auto spins. Most of our other skills, like the Sigil of Hope, will be auto-casted as you kill enemies because of the passive tree, and I rarely use Lunge unless I need the mobility. I don't use Erasing Strike as much now because the spin is just so simple, right? It doesn't require any pressing. And finally, Anomaly gives us tons of lifesteal and also increasing damage. So most of the time fighting enemies, I just press Anomaly, get a buff, get lifesteal, just stand there and hands free. It's super simple. As I run around, I also deal damage over time. So this is really a fun combination once you learn the small tricks with the Void Knight. Now, similar to most of the builds at the moment with Last Epoch, I'm following a number of builders guide on Last Epoch tools. And here I found the Spin to Win Void Knight, which is Endgame, but I am still yet to find those unique items to complete the build. So I'm currently following a leveling build with Void Knight from Min and Max RPG, and he provided some really nice details about leveling with the Void Knight, and you can follow the skill trees and everything. Now in the future, I'll be crafting my own build for you guys. But at the moment, I think those builds I'm following are really good, and I'll just share with you guys the adjustment. So the link to this particular guide will be available. And here comes my personal adjustment as I'm leveling, as I'm progressing through the game. Now, coming over to the skills, one of the first things you're going to notice with the skills, at the early stage of the game, as you spin to win with Warpath, you will need some single target damage. And this also comes to the fact if you come into Warpath, the first 5 points you put into Warpath will be to reduce its mana cost up to 10 cost. And once this happens, Warpath will cost only 1 mana. Now the biggest trick is, you want to be looking for a relic that -3 melee attack mana cost. And once you have this relic, it doesn't matter what zap stats, what effects are. Once you have this relic, so notice it's plus 17 mana, -3 mana. So once this costs 1 mana, right? This -3 mana, you don't gain mana, but once you start spinning, it doesn't cost any mana. But if I take away this relic, notice every second I'm losing mana rapidly, and it cannot be permanent spinning. Hey, I'm not losing mana anymore. Oh come, okay. So yes, it is quite important to have this particular relic, which allows you to not having to, worry about mana as you progress through the early stage of the game. And as you progress through the game, I will take away one of my skills just to show you guys, which is not the best thing to do, but let's do that. So one of the ways I was getting more damage is with Wrath. And what I did was I deliberately perked into this particular point with Full Cleaver to gain a little more damage as I was using a two-handed weapon. And this allows my early game to be much smoother because of this ability to deal more single target against the boss, as you saw in the replays. So if I'm dealing with AoE in the early game, I'm going with Warpath. The second ability I leveled up was Wrath instead of Charge, and this ability coming over here deals tons of single target damage. Then I can come over here for some more damage and also for more frequencies and also more armor shredding potential for those two skills in the early stage of leveling. Now, as you get higher levels, of course, you can follow the guide over here, going to Warpath with Lunge and also with Erasing Strike. Erasing Strike is one of the biggest, hardest single target hitting skills with the Void Knight. This is like the hotter with, Diablo for Barbarians. It costs a bit of energy, but it also have a cooldown. So in that sense, I was rotating between Warpath and also Erasing Strike. And at this point, I no longer needed Wrath because I have two single target and also AoE target skill potential. Now finally, as you guys keep unlocking the skills in the Void Knight tree, you're gonna uncover yourself with an Anomaly, which will increase your damage, and also with these passives over here, you also provide you guys with the ability to lifesteal and also the ability to keep the bubbles around you, which allows you to deal more damage, and it also allows you to have a sustained constant lifesteal. Now the final skills we have is actually coming over the Paladin perk, and by getting level 15 onto the Paladin, you'll have the Sigils of Hope. And the Sigils of Hope can be converted, which we want to do this really fast, into bonus void damage. Once you have bonus void damage, you can be auto-casting the Siege of Hope using last switch over here, which is incredibly good. You don't have to spend mana to be casting this anymore. And of course, if you get into the bonus duration, it will last longer, and I actually went for the additional Siege of Hope to deal more damage. So this is giving me bonus void damage as I convert all my damages into void. Now before we go into the skill rotations, which are quite simple, I want to briefly go through the items I'm using. Because this is the second entire time I'm playing, I did find some really nice unique items which provided me with great bonus in the early stage of the game. For example, this two-handed axe doesn't require any levels, and the majority of the items I'm showing with you guys over here actually have level 6, no level requirement, no level requirement, level 4 level requirement, and those items are incredibly good. So here I'm just hovering over them because those are some of the items I was using. Now one of the biggest highlights are coming from those two rings, which is incredibly good for leveling. So currently my movement speed is 47%. So if I go on to those two rings, my movement speed goes to 73%. And as I spin to win with my warpath, I get even more movement speed because back then I was using items that provided me with more movement speed, and also over here warpath will provide me with more movement speed with 3 of those perks. So you can be leveling incredibly fast if you have those items. But if you don't, and this is your early run for the game, that is okay as well. So yes, definitely keep an eye out for those incredibly good unique items for any alt characters to be leveling. Now as you go into the latest stage of the game, I'm not into the end game, because if you saw over here with the build I was trying to follow, they have some really nice unique items that converted into legendaries. So I'm currently using a set of items for the Void Knight, which deals tons of damage, quite defensive, and also very powerful. So if you happen to have found 1, 2, or 3 of those set items for the Void Knight, you're really good in the leveling stage, and it's incredible for mid-game as well. And this gives me tons of damage over time, and tons of void penetration. Now in terms of the gears and also items, much of the time you just want to focus on the -3 mana with the mana cost. You do want to get a boost with good mobility. The Dark Strider is one of the best boosts for the Void Knight for the void damage bonus. And everything else you want to get some health, resistance, and if you can get bonus health, bonus void damage, that'll be great. Similarly with the idols, you want to get all stats, all resistance a little higher. So currently my resistance are not 75, but I'm slowly getting there. And you can also go for melee void damage or void damage as well. So this is a really nice one. Increase my spin to win area effect and also increase melee void damage. So it's not a big requirement to get all of those idols in the early stage of leveling, but if you do find them, this will help you to become tankier as you lifesteal your way through the game. Now briefly going through the skill rotation for the Void Knight. Well, at the very start of the game, what you're going to do is you're going to hold down shift and press W, and all of a sudden you're spin to win. Notice I'm hands-free during the recording and during the fights, and as I hit enemies, I'll move even faster. So this is actually incredibly powerful, and I think I was achieving over 80 to 90% movement speed as I go through enemies. You don't have to worry too much about staying around to kill the enemies, because you also deal damage over time. And this allows you to rush through objectives, clear the dungeon, and also become incredibly fast in any content from any mode, which is actually great. You want to be speedy, you want to be fast, and you want to conserve your fingers, because sometimes your fingers get tired. So it's really fun to play this particular mode. And you can see the skill rotations. I'm not really showing the skills. But yes, you can launch into enemies to provide yourself with invulnerability, life recovery, and also additional void damage. Now most of the time, I'm not casting Siege of Hope because it will be cast automatically as I slay enemies with a small chance. And finally, if I needed lifesteal, let me go fast forward a little bit, maybe coming to the boss. So if I ever needed a bonus form of damage and also lifesteal, I'll cast an anomaly. And once you have the perk available, you will create a bubble around you, which gives you bonus void damage and also allows you to do, increased lifesteal. Now I have to admit, I'm not using Erasing Strike as much after I have my higher levels to Warpass. This is a great burst potential, but it will cost me some of my mana. And in the latest stage of the game, the cooldown is quite long, so I rarely use this one unless I have the spare mana. But once I do, this one can crit pretty hard. This one can crit to 30,000, even 40, 50,000 if you hit correctly with the combinations. So hopefully this helps you to build into your Spin to Win Void Knight with minimum button clicking and super fast as you level. I'll provide the replay to you guys now, and if you come over to the end of the replays, you can see my skill trees as leveling to level 50 up to level 59. And this will help you to progress through the mid game to the end game with the Void Knight and also Spin to Win.